We're joined by Dan Perry. He's a world affairs analyst, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Dan, for joining us. Now that we have seen Mahmoud Abbas' statements, and what is your reaction? And how do you think, how hopeful he is about UN making a difference in Palestine and Israel's situation?
Well, the UN can't make a difference unless the UN Security Council takes action. And at the Security Council, it's very likely that any action to compel Israel too brutally will be vetoed by the United States. And so the UN is rather limited realistically in what it can do. I suppose it can expel Israel from various UN agencies, things of that nature. But even that is complicated if they want to retain American funding. Realistically, the issue is political will. And engineering a situation that can turn the Palestine recognition into something concrete on the ground, because on the ground there is no Palestine. The 1933 Montevideo Convention defines a state as a defined territory with a clear population that has a government that can rule it. Mahmoud Abbas can't even rule Gaza. He was expelled from Gaza by Hamas. So in today's speech, it is certainly a step forward that Abbas clearly condemns October 7th. That's great. It's a huge step forward that he clearly, in a very public venue, calls for Hamas to be disarmed. It's not new, but it was a very big setting. So the question now is, what can be done to make Israel's fears and objections to steps that must be taken for Palestine to be real? What can be done to make them go away? And the number one thing is for Hamas to be disarmed. I can't emphasize this enough. Israel is not going to withdraw from the West Bank, which surrounds Jerusalem on three sides from like a mile away, if Hamas might take it over and invade their capital city from Palestine. It's just not going to happen. So Hamas must be disarmed. The second thing that has to happen is, realistically, when the world recognizes Palestine, they are recognizing the Palestinian Authority Autonomy Government set up in the 90s, which Abbas has ruled since the 2000s, as its government. That's the idea. But Israel has very strong objections, at least Netanyahu's Israel, has strong objections to Abbas. And it comes down to two things. One, the Palestinian Authority's school curriculum pretty much educates children for war against the Jews. Consider that when Hamas took over Gaza, they didn't change the curriculum from that which the PA had been implementing. That tells you something. That must be changed. And it sounds like a quibble, but it isn't. This is very real for Israel, and the idea is that they're facing so much radicalism because that's the educational system run by Abbas, not Hamas. The second thing Israel objects to is the Palestinian Authority paying the families of terrorists who are imprisoned by Israel significant sums of money, which is seen as essentially a payment for terrorism that then the PA denies having a connection to. Now, they will say, we have to do this because that's a political imperative for us to maintain the support of people. I get that. It cannot be that if you kill 20 Israelis in like a bombing, civilians, the PA then, rewards you with huge sums to your family. That has to change. So there are a number of steps that Abbas can take and that the world can compel Abbas to take to reform the PA to make it less objectionable to many Israelis. But the number one impediment to any of this being real is the disarming of Hamas. It's not so simple because they're going to try to resist it, but that needs to be the central focus of anyone who wants this to be real in any way.
And Dan, you've already laid out some improvements that can be done in this situation, but what lessons can be drawn from the failure of the Oslo Accords? What do you think, and what new strategies should be or might be proposed to ensure that both countries adhere to agreements, both states?
Well, the Oslo Accords was undone by both Israeli right-wingers who wanted to destroy the process, and by Palestinian rejectionist jihadists who wanted to destroy the process. So basically, Israel should have been prevented from doing any more settlement in the West Bank. That really drove Palestinian anger. And Palestinians should never have been permitted to allow armed groups to exist within their midst and somehow pretend that's normal. And this latter point, I think, is finally starting to be understood by the Middle East at large. And it's not just about Palestine. I mean, for years, Lebanon was basically held hostage by Hezbollah. This is craziness. Imagine if, like in India, you have the Modi government, but you also have some crazy militia that can force the Modi government to do all kinds of stuff. That's what you had in Palestine, in Lebanon, and also to a degree in Iraq, and obviously in Yemen. And they're trying, Iran, their patron, has been trying to infiltrate other countries as well. That allowing Hamas and Islamic Jihad to exist was a catastrophe. And that's lesson number one, the monopoly of armed force. And again, tolerating Israeli settlement was very bad as well. Another lesson I would say can be learned is that the Oslo process was very slow. And it was very slow because of the argument that said we have to, establish trust and, do confidence building measures and not take risks. And that makes sense, except the very slowness of it gave the opponents of the process on both sides time to organize and try to do the opposite of confidence building, to try to destroy confidence. And that's what happened. I mean, Palestinians became increasingly radicalized and supporting jihadism and Hamas, also because of the corruption of the PA that manifested itself over this long term. And in this vicious cycle, all this negativity fed Israeli right-wing support, which caused the election of governments that, in ways that are deniable, undeniable, subterranean, sometimes overt, did everything they could to subvert the process. So I would say, tolerate no more nonsense and strike while the iron is hot, make it quick.
Is there anyone else who can govern Palestine if it were to happen?
That's a great, and you can look at it, you can break it down. Hamas cannot. Hamas should have been illegitimate always. Hamas has spent all of its legitimacy capital on October 7th. They have proven themselves to be a disaster for the Palestinian people in particular. They've massacred Israelis, but they brought a cataclysm upon the Palestinians. Nothing good will come from Hamas. Hamas must be crushed and eliminated. The PA is a viable option, but they will need to do some reforms, as I mentioned before, and also realistically, Abbas was last elected 20 years ago. Now, they will probably need to achieve renewed democratic legitimacy. It's tricky, because no one wants to take the risk that an election will somehow bring back jihadists. So maybe there's an aspect there that's undemocratic. I think a future Palestinian election will have to ban parties that want to continue war against Israel and that basically are affiliated with Hamas and Islamic Jihad point of view. Alternatives to those two are few and far between. Israel fantasizes, not Israel, Netanyahu's Israel, which I have to emphasize is unstrategic and somewhat clueless. But Netanyahu's Israel fantasizes about local chieftains, tribes, clan heads ruling the different Palestinian enclaves. I don't think that's going to work, and that's going to be ruled by little mafias. So I rule that out. The PA is better. An alternative that has been discussed is for Gaza to be for a time a protectorate run by Arab countries, maybe neighboring Egypt, maybe with help from the UAE and Saudi Arabia, some sort of consortium of Arab countries ruling Gaza for a time as a transition to a Palestinian government, which again would have to be the PA. And of course, there's the final option, which I don't know if to laugh or to cry. The Donald Trump idea is owned and operated by the United States, which builds a wonderful Riviera, while the Palestinians all find different places to live. Right. This is something he actually floated in February, and no one knows what to make of it. And all I can say is these kinds of ideas remind me of the saying that history repeats itself first as tragedy and then as farce.
Right, indeed.